Hey, I'm Lauren, certified building biologist, wellness interior designer, and healthy home educator. I want to welcome you to the House Holistics podcast, where we explore how healthy buildings create healthy people. I'll be bringing you life-enhancing conversations with some of the brightest minds in the world. Perhaps your full potential is on the other side of a healthier environment. I'm your host, Lauren Raday. Let's go deeper. Welcome, Candace, to the House Holistics podcast. I'm just really grateful to have you here and to impart your wisdom to the listeners. I mean, you have an incredible healing story, just kind of this journey of searching for how to get well. And I find what's so interesting about your story and even my story and kind of our confluence of our connection point with Primal Trust, our symptoms that we've had and conditions overlap so much. And this is how I know we are really divinely meant to be connected. Sometimes we look at the synchronicities in life and we're like, wow, I experienced chronic PTSD too. Wow, I experienced mold exposure and chronic fatigue. And I mean, I just want to list a few of the conditions that you've experienced in your life. And really, I would love this time for us together to explore the range of healing modalities that you have unearthed through the vehicle of Primal Trust. So you're kind of like our Primal Trust tour guide today. And I'm just so grateful and honored to have you here, Candace. So welcome.
Thank you so much. This is such a fun topic / tricky topic. First of all, thanks for having me though. I'm just kind of giddy to be here and talk with you. But the reason it's tricky is I don't really think about my symptoms anymore, but that's all I thought about for like 17, 18 years. So if you see me like, what did I have? It's because I've moved on, into a new life. And that's why it's so cool to talk about it in the past. And yeah, so some of the things that I experienced, oh my gosh. Okay, the chronic fatigue was one of the first things to really hit me. And it came out of nowhere. It would be just like debilitating. I had really intense food sensitivities, and that kind of overlapped with the chronic fatigue. So certain foods would make me so sleepy, specifically gluten. And then I had major, major digestive issues, lots of pain and bloating and constipation for weeks and even months plus at a time. Lots of, like mental illness type signs, depression, so much anxiety, um, night terrors, insomnia, skin issues, vision issues, sensitivity to light, chemicals, loud sounds. Yeah, those are probably like all the major ones, and they're probably not all the major ones, but those are the ones I can think of. Oh, sometimes there would be just like pain, I had a lot of pain. It felt arthritic, like in my joints, in my back, my feet, my hands, to the point where sometimes I couldn't get out of bed, I couldn't walk, I couldn't put on my underwear. And then sometimes I would have these, I call them ice pick pains, and it would just be like these jolts of pain suddenly, and it was really kind of scary.
Mm-hmm.
And there's conditions that go along with all of these, like you can name them like POTS, and I don't really like to get into the conditions so much, because sometimes that's like it's like making it something separate from me. It's like, "Oh, yeah, I just inherited this thing,"
Mhm.
when really it's just a combination of the body and the whole system kind of sending out alarm signals.
Mhm. And it's so much to deal with when there are all of these symptoms happening at once. And I know you have told me that this was over a span of specifically 20 or so years, but it's been a lot of pain, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, that you've had to endure with some of these chronic, yeah, symptoms. I like to use air quotes too because I don't either like to even necessarily say like I have put this into remission because because of the meat of what we're going to be talking about today, around nervous system healing. And I do want listeners to reference the fantastic and vulnerable, I appreciate your authenticity, interview that you did with Dr. Kat on YouTube. I will link that in the description of this podcast that we're sharing today. You go more into your story and some of the challenges that you've had to overcome. And so it's a great interview, and I think listeners can glean a lot of wow, yeah, I'm experiencing that thing too. And so with today's conversation, Candace, I would love to really use your experience, your knowledge in the world of brain retraining, limbic system retraining, nervous system healing. I mean, with all of those conditions and symptoms, did you have any idea that they could have been connected to your nervous system?
No, I didn't. I did have an intuition, though, that they were all connected. And even though I did see doctors and a lot of alternative, healing practitioners, I something in me was like, "These aren't separate things, and they what it's not what I need is not, acute treatment for every single
Mm,
separate condition," but I had no idea what that was.
mhm,
So, um, yeah, it was a massive revelation and relief to me when I discovered they were all connected,
mhm,
although I will say I resisted that idea for a while. My doctor, my functional medicine MD, had told me about, brain retraining and nervous system rehabilitation, and I didn't listen. I I couldn't hear it.
yeah.
I I couldn't be that simple, and I see that a lot with people I work with, in Primal Trust community. It's like you've spent so much time, energy, money, um, chasing these
Mm,
answers that if the answer turns out to be very different than you expected or kind of really simple, the mind is like, "No way. No way. That's That's not possible, and that would mean that I wasted a lot of time and energy and money. That's part of, why I resisted it, because I had spent 15 years, on diet and supplements and treatments, and I was kinda still in that hamster wheel of just trying to find the next perfect treatment. Like, there's just one little ingredient that I'm missing, and if I just plug that
yeah.
in.
It's right
Yeah.
around the corner.
Yeah. And somebody else will be able to tell me what that is and kinda do it for me,
Outside of
was the
self.
other thing. Yeah, and that's really a protective response. It's a coping mechanism
Mhm.
to just be, like, always looking for the solution. It makes sense that we do that. It makes sense that our mind takes over and is trying to control the situation because it does feel dangerous.
Mhm. Yeah, it's the research mode that we find, it's one of the aspects that we can control about our sickness, illness, disease, in order to get well, and that's something that I definitely fell under for many, many years of I've got to find the next healing solution because I'm so in a hole. So I'm curious, Candace, with your kind of resistance into being open to brain retraining or nervous system healing, what was the kind of connection with Primal Trust? Did you start the program and you just kind of knew this might help? And let me just put a pause real quick, too, for listeners that have no idea what Primal Trust is. Can you give a little bit of an elevator speech for this program?
Yeah, Primal Trust is an online academy and community that supports healing from chronic illness and also healing from trauma.
Mm.
And the two are interwoven most of the time. And the power of the program comes from the deep scientific um, roots of it. So, this is really kind of cutting edge neurological science combined with very, very practical applications. The program has the academy part has, modules and lessons where you learn things in a very specific order. Dr. Cathleen King is our founder, and she herself suffered from extreme chronic illness for a very long time. And she was also a physical therapist, and she has a PhD. So she's done a lot of the underlying work to like really understand how this all makes sense and how it fits together
Mhm.
and what's next. She's always, like integrating new understandings into the program. So it's not just we found this one thing and it works pretty well, so everybody come learn this. It's always evolving and growing. Um, so yeah, it's very basic nervous system regulation, and I can talk later about, what tools help with that and what practices. But there's also an amazing community of teachers, mentors, and students, peers. I'm a student there, and I will be probably for a long time.
Yep, same.
And we all help each other and co-regulate, and yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, it's an amazing community, and also the academy part, a lot of the material is steeped in science, and I know we share the the mutual understanding of, "Wait, I want to know why this is happening in my body. What is going on, to cause that or to create that? Oh my gosh, like, that's why I was dysregulated for all of those years." And so Dr. Cat has really organized the information in not just a way that, feeds that I wanna know why our body works this way, but also the community part is experiential, and it's been so healing to be a part of it consistently the last 18 months, and I think you've been a part of it for a couple years now. Is that right?
Yeah, this week I was actually looking to see when I first signed on, and I saw the start date on my profile is 2/22/2022.
You are a Primal Trust OG.
Yeah. I mean, it was already going for probably a couple years before that, but, yeah, it continues to evolve, and it's amazing.
Mhm. Yeah, well, again, I'm just grateful to have you here with us today. For listeners, Candace is a mentor with Primal Trust, and uh, mentors are provided to kind of walk through one on one with people through their own healing journeys. And so I want to get into that a little bit more, what you enjoy about being a mentor with this program. But that moment, let's go back to that question, that moment that you started Primal Trust that you knew this was going to help you?
Okay, so I actually started with another program first that was pretty much solely focused on brain
Mhm.
retraining in a very specific way. And I had some pretty immediate results from that. Like it started to shift my nervous system out of the most extreme chronic stress loops.
Mhm.
And so within the first week of doing those practices, and I went into it thinking this is not going to work, but I have nothing to lose really. So I started, and within a few days I felt different. Like my body had just a little more energy, a little less fatigue. And so I did that for 2 years almost. And but I hit this plateau fairly early on, and I just felt like, yeah, some symptoms are a little bit better, but I am still underneath very anxious and things just aren't right. Like
Mm.
so yeah, when I joined Primal Trust and I saw that it really welcomed my whole self. It wasn't just like bring your brain and let's do these same exercises every day and just keep going and it'll eventually, change you. It was more of um it was more soulful, it was more heart connected, even spiritual. I felt like there was space for me to have all of those experiences, and that's what I needed.
Mm. And so the difference between the rounds that you were doing with this other program, how were they different from the ABC rounds that you were doing with Primal Trust? I mean, I think this is an important clarifier for listeners because the ABC rounds really have been a needle mover for me, and I've been doing them consistently twice a day for 18 months. It's like I don't miss a beat with them because how much my life has changed from becoming aware, from breathing, going into my body because I lived from the chest up most of my life, and then creating a future reality. That's what ABC stands for. So talk about the differences between what you were experiencing and then these new rounds.
Um, I would say the main difference is that, yeah, you referred to like the body, the connection with the body, and that was a huge part of Primal Trust that really called to me. We refer to it sometimes as bottom up healing, where you start with the body and either movement or just somatic awareness. And that's an entry point. Your connection with your body is an entry point to changing your nervous system because all these years of being dysregulated, you've been like kind of separating yourself from your body out for different reasons. So that's the bottom up approach. The top down approach is you start kind of with your mind, but you're really focusing on your brain and how what it's thinking about, what it's focusing on, the associations it's making. And that ends up filtering down into your body. So you have changes that way. So it's really top down and bottom up. They are both necessary. And when you do an ABC round, you're very intentionally blending those. So the A is the awareness part, and it's pretty simple, or it can be, but it also, in Primal Trust, the awareness leaves space for recognizing, acknowledging, and even accepting some uncomfortable feelings and maybe unwanted states. In the other program I was in, it was very much about ignore anything uncomfortable, push it away, cancel, clear it, pretend it's not there. And I think that can be useful at times, but it's not really a long time sustainable or long-term sustainable approach. So with the ABC, you do the awareness, which can include body sensations, mental states,
Mhm.
and then you go into the B part, which is the body. It can be breath, it can be a little bit of movement, it can just be body-based awareness. And then the C is choosing and creating I say a new experience for yourself.
Beautiful.
Because that's really what it ended up for me. Like,
Yes.
oh, wait, it wasn't just imagining things that made me happy. It was like choosing something that was right for
Mhm.
me in that moment. There's a lot more choice in these rounds, I feel like the ABC, and really permission to tune into yourself. And that's also what I love about Primal Trust. Dr. Kat, all throughout the level one, she's giving lots of information and lots of very specific suggestions. But she's also saying all the way through, you guys, these are just suggestions.
Yeah.
The people who really do well in this program are the ones who make it their own.
Yeah.
Like, this is for you, and it kind of has to be by you. You have to be the filter for yourself, and it's hard at first, but the more you practice that, the better you get, which, surprise, calms your nervous system when it knows that it's being listened
Yeah.
to.
Yep. I remember Dr. Cat I guess it was in regulation, like maybe the first or second chapter. She had said, if you are wanting to come here and binge all of this material, that is the reason why you're here in this room, right? And I was like,
Yeah.
yes, like that is, I have just binged probably my entire life because of the dysregulation in my nervous system. And when Candace and I, for listeners, when we're talking about a dysregulated nervous system, we all know it, we've all experienced it. It's a true disconnect from our physical bodies, from our emotions, and that may look like type A personalities, that may look like I can multitask and do a million things at once. That may look like saying yes all the time when we really mean no. That may look like being an overachiever, a people pleaser. I mean, we can all look around and see people that are completely not home because they are dysregulated from even their own ethos, their own spirit. um and our bodies and our brains and our digestion systems, all of it is neuroplastic and malleable. It's all retrainable. And so what I love about your story is you experienced 20 years of chronic illness and conditions, and yet you have bounced back. That should just be so encouraging to listeners. And Primal Trust is really, I would say, so much about coming home within, because when we are dysregulated, we aren't comfortable being home within. And so with the ABC rounds, Candace, can you give an example of the creation aspect, the C aspect of what were you trying to create? And maybe it's a simple
That's
example, right? Like, I hope I can walk to the mailbox today.
yeah. It's such a fun question, and I lead a small group in Primal Trust. Every month or so, I start a new one focused just on it's called easing into
Oh,
ABCs.
cool.
And it's like, let's take this amazing brain
Yeah.
retraining practice and let's start really small.
Mhm.
Because honestly, it doesn't have to be big. It doesn't
Mhm.
have to be complicated. So, I started with my C part. You know, I there's lots of options. There's like 5 categories that Dr. Cat recommends in the program. And one of them is memories and future visualizations. And so I did some of those, but I actually had a lot of resistance to that because it was very difficult for me to come up with memories that weren't kind of tainted by with anxiety and profound disappointment or, just all the emotional stuff. And the future visualizations were a little challenging because I wanted so much. I wanted to do so much in the future,
Mhm.
and I would kind of overshoot on those. So after a couple of years really of doing rounds kind of like those that were never quite really meeting me where I needed to be met, I started asking myself, what what do I actually need? Like, apparently I need something that I have not been getting because it's been 20 years now
Yeah.
that my system is still stuck in protective and survival mode.
Yes.
So something is missing. So I really started like asking and like listening hard. And the first thing that came to me was like, I just need a moment of calm. That's really what I'm
Mm.
craving. And so I started to give myself I don't think I've shared this before, but I remembered this the other day. The first C part that was really mine, um, I just felt into my body like what would feel so calming right now. And immediately I thought of like walking slowly through a jungle forest, where like the soil is kind of mulchy and soft and the air is moist and cool and the trees are just kind of, whispering. And like I feel it right now. I
Yeah.
have chills because I was just like, that's all I need. That's all I need. And so I started creating for myself like this place that I would go during all of my rounds. If I did like 2 ABC rounds in a day, the first one would always be this
Mm.
for a while.
Beautiful.
And I had like this walking path in the forest. And then eventually it kind of led me up to this clearing, and different things would come to me. Like it would evolve. And soon there was like a hot spring there, which
Mm.
is my favorite thing in the world. And so I would, I'm giving myself like 10, 15 minutes. Sometimes it was shorter if I didn't have the capacity. I'd be like, just do 2 minutes of
Mm.
this. But a lot of times it felt so good just to be calm.
Mhm.
And when I started focusing my practices on that thing that I actually needed instead of like what happened in the past, what could happen in the future,
Mhm.
what's something, pretty to think about. It was like that's when my nervous system really shifted.
Mm.
And and it felt so good that I knew I was on the right track. And then those things kind of evolved, like what I needed started to evolve. Um yeah. But one of my favorite things to do is guide people in my groups. We often do like a recorded practice, so I'll kind of just do a practice and record it, and everybody's kind of, going along with it. And um it really is a treat. Like
Mhm.
it's a big mindset shift from like this is something I need to do this many times a day in order to get better. And I better do it right, and I better do it enough times and enough minutes. And if you can shift out of that to, you know, I I deserve time where I'm just taking care of
Yeah.
me. I deserve to be taken care of. And I'm going to give myself this treat of these 5 minutes or 10 or 15 minutes or whatever.
Mhm.
And then it becomes precious. And this is something our nervous system deeply, deeply needs.
Mhm.
It's that shift.
Yeah. And the trust that we are listening to our nervous system. I mean, we really, as a society, have become incredibly dysregulated and disoriented because our system does not trust us. because we've abused our own power and we've abused our own voices. And so when we have a mountain of symptoms and a mountain of conditions and illnesses, we must learn that those are all signals. They're not bad, they're not evil, they're not to be shoved away and pushed under the rug. They are actual lifesavers that are being presented to us to pause, stop, listen, and the reality of it may look like every single thing about our life has to change. Everything might have to change for us to stop and listen, to find the healing that we need, the transformation that we seek, but it's all worth it in the end. It's all worth it.
Yeah, it's beyond worth it. And like you were saying earlier, it's the fact that somebody like me can have 20 years of suffering, like, and I wasn't always suffering. I did have moments where I was able to live, but collectively, I mean, I had really kind of started to give up hope.
Yep.
But so when you're in it, you just can't imagine how it could possibly ever end
Mhm.
and what it can feel like, on the other side. And so when you say like it's worth it, it's like, yes, I send love back to myself in those times
Mhm.
when I was very close to giving up, and
Yeah.
I know people are there and nothing is guaranteed, of course, but like and my life isn't perfect now and my system isn't perfectly regulated. That's not what's required. It's more like you're just shifting the pathway that you're on,
Yes.
and then it's just such a huge relief to be off of the hamster wheel pressure
Yes.
cooker pathway.
Yes, and it's countercultural. So even
Yeah.
slowing down, this is something my therapist of 10 plus years has told me, especially as of late. The choice to slow down movements, actions, thoughts, intentions, even and slowing down our consciousness is not what culture is used to. And so I mean, I have found so much relief in slowing down, but also accepting that, uh, there's a part of me that wants to let's do it all today and talk a million miles an hour and all of the things that there's parts of us that are tempted by that old lifestyle again. But I have found just like a refreshing spring in connecting with people like yourself who have been on this journey a long time, who also want to slow down. We are not crazy. We are just choosing a slower life. Am I right?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's wild because your mind thinks if you slow down, you won't experience as much, but the
Mm,
opposite is true.
yes.
When you slow down, you create it's really cool and magical, and you can feel it in your body even when you do it, right? Like, the slower you go, the more spaciousness there is in every moment, and you're actually experiencing more. And more has even happened in my life. Like, I'm able to actually create more when I slow down,
Mm,
and I don't really know how to explain it.
I understand.
Mhm.
It's hard to explain, but it's this physical awareness almost in our senses by entering the body and not staying up in our head there is this whole new awareness that opens up. I mean, my intuition is sharper, so therefore, I mean, if you look at it like this, therefore I'm making less mistakes, and so I'm saving
Mhm,
time.
mhm, mhm. It's so much more efficient
Yes. Yes. And who would have
and
thought?
so much more connected. That's
Mhm,
the magic. It's like
mhm.
you are just tapped in more and more to your own, authentic self, but also to source.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. The beautiful reminder every time I go to do many of the tools is visualizing that grounding cord right into the earth, and then also visualizing my connection to God, and knowing that there's this balance that's happening with both. And
Yeah.
that in and of itself is healing. So let's talk about some of the tools that Primal Trust offers, so that almost so that people can kind of experience the things that are on the table. I want to say that when I first started Primal Trust, I was the like, okay, I'm gonna get up in the morning and I'm gonna do my eye exercises and I'm gonna vagal tone and then I'm gonna do my ABC round and then I'm gonna do somatic work and then I'm gonna do, tension release and then, I mean, eventually I got the hint. But if you can, Candace, share kind of the buffet of options as far as tools go.
Yeah, well, you just presented a really yummy menu, and, to eat that whole menu in one morning is a lot.
Classic.
Yeah, okay, so, yeah, let's kinda go you did the perfect order too, that's kind of how it's presented, it's really, the first tools that are presented are very simple, uh, kind of, well, the breath, right? Slowing down the breath and choosing a mindset that is, "I am here now in this." And yeah, it's the opposite of running away. So it's new to the brain a lot of times. So we start there, and then yeah, the vagal toning. So the next part of the academy is around the polyvagal theory, and it's cool because there's a whole module that kind of lays it out and explains what that means and why it's important, and then helps you locate yourself on the polyvagal map. And that's really cool because then you know where you are in terms of your nervous system state, which can help you discern which tool to use. Um, so the vagal toning tools include the eye exercises where you're very smoothly moving your eyes in sort of like non straight ahead
Mhm.
directions. That's how I describe it. It doesn't really matter exactly which order or practice you do. It's just more about letting your eyes be natural eyeballs and not, screen focused.
Yeah. Also
There are some
darting
really
back and forth,
simple.
like, I didn't realize that when I was really dysregulated, my eyes are always scanning the environment looking for threats.
Yeah. And this is, a great example of a bottom up practice because we're sort of choosing to mimic how our body would function if we were relaxed and if we were living
Uh-huh.
naturally. And so we're doing that, and that signals to the brain because um so much of the information going in and out of the brain is actually coming into the brain from the body. So if you're rushing around and moving and your eyes are darting and you're talking fast and loud and your body is hearing that information and it's taking that as a signal that there's probably danger
Yeah.
around. And so the brain is hearing that information and then saying,
Uh-huh.
okay, well, we'll be in danger mode. But it's really cool because we actually get to choose, to a degree, how our bodies act, whether it's our breath pace or our eyes or our arms stretching. And that is it's like sending a message to your brain.
Yes.
Um, so there's really simple exercises like that. Also the sounding. So, there's the VOO breath.
Mhm.
I like to do with my mouth closed. That feels really good to me. um, so those are all very basic practices, but they have a huge impact.
Huge.
The number of people in Primal Trust who just do the practices from module 3 and the vagal toning module and see huge results
Uh,
is really impressive. It's awesome.
Uh-huh. Yeah, they're all targeting the vagus nerve that is running throughout our entire body, especially that VU breath, the humming or the om. I mean, I instantly feel better after VU breathing for 2 minutes.
Yeah. And so back to your point of like, I'm going to do all these things this morning. You don't need all those
No.
things. You need one little practice or one little signal to your brain where it's like, hey, I got you. And actually, things are okay.
Yeah.
That is what makes the difference. And if your mind is piling on the list of tools that you need to do, you are counteracting any benefit that you might get
Uh-huh.
from actually doing the tools.
Uh-huh. I'm gonna calm my nervous system with more dysregulation.
Calm that nervous system so hard, it's never going to.
I'm gonna beat it down and I'm gonna make it surrender, you know?
Or I'm going to be the best at this. That was me. I was like, I'm going to do this so thoroughly. No one will ever have done it as thoroughly as I did it.
Yep.
My system is like, geez, enough already.
Yep.
Yeah. So then in module 4, we go into the brain retraining, it's just really cool because, we can choose our thoughts.
Yes.
And there's a number of Primal Trust interviews that talk with people who have made incredible recoveries. And a lot of what they say is like, it just came down to choice. Like, I just kept choosing to do this way, to be on this path. I just kept choosing. And that's really what it is. I mean, you are making new neurological connections, new neurons are connecting with,
Mhm.
they're making new connections. And the more frequently they connect, the stronger and like thicker that pathway
Yeah.
gets. But choosing in the beginning is not easy.
No.
So with the brain retraining, there is a very specific format that you can follow. There's also a collection of integration classes that different mentors have led. So I did a series. So I go through module 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and all of those are in a separate place. And different teachers and mentors have different approaches. So if you really resonate with one person, in the way they present, you can get a slightly different take on all the Primal Trust lessons. And Dr. Kat intentionally did this because, people learn in different ways and resonate with different perspectives. So my perspective, because I needed this, because I was just so overwhelmed with life, my perspective is to keep things very simple and reduce, 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 and really just kind of open up and ask for that moment, just one moment of being connected. Um, so anyway, I did an integration class on module 4, and I kind of go over a really simple way to approach the ABC practice. And then after, that module, we have the somatics module, and they're again kind of there is no one particular tool that's going to be the one for you. It could change every day, and it doesn't even have to be a specific tool. The principles behind the somatic tools are cultivating connection with your body, which includes awareness, where you're putting your attention on your body instead of attention anywhere but your body. And you're listening to your body. That's called interoception. You're really tuning in and learning how to hear the very subtle cues that your body's giving you about what it needs, um, how it feels, uh, where it needs to be tended to. And this could mean you could have a signal that's like, I want you to raise your arms above your head. And then, you're like, okay, like, all right, I just feel like raising my arms above your head. And then you're like, oh, that feels good. Like my nervous system just took a deep breath. And that cycle of listening to your body and then noticing how it led you somewhere helpful, that's where you start cultivating trust, right? More and more and more trust. That's why it's called primal trust. And then it becomes a new loop. Instead of a fear loop and a protection loop, it's like, I trust my body. I'm going to listen to it. Okay, yeah. And then my body, and then I get confirmation that that was a good thing to do. And every single time I do that, my body's starting to trust me more. Mm-hmm. So my body is like less screamy, kicky, throwing a tantrum, sending out all the alarm signals, and more in a state of like, oh, I know she's going to take care of me. And that way, when things get bumpy in life, which they always, like, that will keep happening. Regulation is not about just being calm all the time, but it really is about having that mutual trust between you and your body and your mind and your heart, where we know that we can handle whatever comes. And I can even trust when I get activated. I can even trust myself to get a little angry or be a little irritated or be a little scared, and then be like, "Oh yeah, okay, but I know how to come back from this. I know how to come back to center."
Mm-hmm.
And some of the somatic tools that were very clear and simple, different ways of, like, moving your chest, your diaphragm, um, different breath work tools, and very specific kinds of breath work that's not super activating, because there's a lot of like breath work out there in the in the self-improvement world that's really not, it's too activating
Yeah.
for a nervous system that's been overwhelmed.
Holotropic breath work, I have loved
Yeah.
it, and it has aided in my healing journey a great deal, but it was also way too activating for me. It would blow me out the entire next day, and, like, some of that was okay, and I worked through it, but when I really started kind of going within my body, I realized I can't, like, if I wanna take this breathwork class to a 10, my body wants it to be a 2 and just lay here, right? Like, um, and that was something that I was picking up from the signals and the cues that you're referencing by noticing. So, somatics, I know this is a module that you're very passionate about. I mean, you even developed what is called body bliss, and somatics also is huge for me in my healing journey, to especially Feldenkrais. And Michelle teaches on the platform Feldenkrais practices, kind of maybe a little bit a unique version of it, but Feldenkrais was one of the first somatic practices that helped me to notice when I'm not pausing and to pause in between all my movements so that I could then assess, oh, my body is wanting to move this way. And then when I move that way, there's so much relief that comes, and then the anxiety is lowered. because I imagine so many of us are walking around like there's a kid in a cage in our bodies that just wants to move, that just wants to come out and express themselves. But because we live in a society that wants to kind of not move in that way, like we want to be rigid, we want to be closed off, there's a part of us that just wants to be free. And somatic movement is the ticket to that little kid in that cage to be free, especially dancing. I mean, if you can move, turn on music by yourself and just blast the music and follow your body's lead, you will release like you can release generational trauma like in a moment that way because that kid is now free to move in the way that they want to move.
Yeah, 100%. And, our minds, again, our culturally conditioned mind finds it very difficult to believe that something like movement or dance could be so
Mm.
effective at, medically healing the body. And it's like, sorry, buddy, this is just what we were programmed to do. It's so efficient.
Yeah.
Our bodies have so much intelligence. Our whole system has spent hundreds of thousands of years evolving, longer technically, but if we kind of just give it a chance, to be free, to be itself. And, for me personally, I love dancing. My whole life was like I was just a dancer in my soul and heart and body. But then when my nervous system crashed and I was so dysregulated for 15, 20 years, I wasn't able to enjoy that freedom. Like, if I did turn on the music and, blast it and just move around, or if I went dancing, I would crash for the next few days. And sometimes it was worth it. I was like, "I don't care, I'm doing it anyway, 'cause I need to feel that freedom." But part of my system had been through so much trauma and just disconnection that I no longer trusted that freedom. And so moving big and fun and fast and free felt like a threat to my limbic system, the part of me that was, like, always on alert. It's like, "That's actually gonna be dangerous." So it was very hard for me to slow down my somatic life because I also liked to, like, walk and exercise and lift weights and play ultimate frisbee with my friends and my kids. And that was one of the hardest things over those 20 years was like, I can't I can't do those things. And for a long time, I just said, "Well, I can't do it. I don't know why." But even after I started brain retraining and nervous system rehabilitation, it took me a while. It took me years to build up the capacity to rebuild that trust with my system that exercising, walking, running, dancing could be part of my new safe, secure life. Because it was also cross-wired in the past. I used those things as, like, stress relief when I was still fully in trauma, and so my brain was like, "Oh, that reminds me of something really scary." So I had to take time to kind of cleanse my palate of those old associations and intentionally build up new ones of slower, calmer. Like, you can actually still feel so free in your body, moving slowly. And again, bizarrely, the more slowly you go, the more space there is for this deep connection, and you're like, right? I have people in my classes all the time say, "I forgot I even had this part of myself." Or, like, tears will just start flowing and nobody I don't know why. But that's because you reconnected with yourself and you missed you. You missed you so much.
Mm, lot of tears can flow through the Primal Trust program.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
after the somatic
Uh-huh.
section, what comes next?
Um, well, there are, then we move into, like, the deeper layers of why did the nervous system become dysregulated in the first place? And the short answer here is trauma. It could be trauma with a capital T, major traumatic events, very acute experiences that are too much for the system to handle, the mental, physical system to handle. But it could also be just long running chronic stress. That is a trauma. And that could be probably classified as a lowercase t trauma, but it doesn't really matter. It's interesting. It doesn't really matter what the trauma was or what pushed you over the edge. But it does matter that you acknowledge those parts of you that had to shut down, that felt like they had to shut down to protect themselves. So, module 6 and then module 7 going into level 2 is really preparing you to very gently, slowly reach out to these parts of yourself and start asking questions and listening to more of the emotional truths, that have been kind of locked up.
Mhm.
And this is not about going back in time and re-experiencing trauma at all. There is everything you need is right here in the present moment. And it's really like the body is such a beautiful access point for that because it will tell you like where it needs attention. It will tell you what kind of attention it needs. And so all of level 2 and level 3 now are really about emotional processing. But what's amazing about Primal Trust, like this is the brilliance of it, is that we do get into these root causes um, where we have separated from ourselves, but we spend a lot of time before that establishing this baseline of trust within our nervous system. And I had done a lot of emotional work, soul work, just
Yeah, same.
yeah, a lot of us have. And it's like, yeah, it was very informative and, helpful in so many ways, but it wasn't really gelling. Like it wasn't able to integrate because the system hadn't upgraded
Yeah.
to the new wiring.
Yes, great way to say that.
Yeah, so that I mean, it's so effective. This program is so effective because it lays it out in the order that you need it. And then also gives you permission to notice if you need to tweak things, if you need something a little different as you go, but all the tools are there and we just keep adding even more amazing classes and practices and community experiences. So,
I'm beyond grateful for this program because I as well had done a decade of emotional work, deep emotional work. And yet there was something that was still causing me to get extremely ill. And I think what was helpful for me is to realize that if we ignore something in our lives, whether that's a small T trauma or a large T trauma, but if we ignore that thing 100 to 1,000 times, we're eventually going to have a boiling over point. And these boiling over points look like, in a lot of people's lives, they look like, oh, I have mold illness, or I have just PTSD, or I have this autoimmune issue, or I have cancer, even. But there was this point of us not listening over and over and over and over again until our burden basically became so full in our bodies, it just exploded. And so I think what's really interesting, and it was for me, is to look at kind of those boiling over points for me and go,
Mm.
oh, it wasn't that thing that caused that. It was, let's look back on the 3.5 decades of my life.
Yeah, I just saw a clip of, Gabor Mate, and it was just a short clip, and he was asking a woman, she had a traumatic event that happened when she was young, and it was very acute. It was very clear, like, that was traumatic. And then he asked her, "Okay, did you tell anyone when that happened?" And she said, "No, I didn't tell anyone." And he said, "And, why didn't you tell anyone?" It's 'cause I didn't feel safe. I didn't trust that was, that would be okay. He's like, "That's the trauma." The trauma was not what happened. The trauma was that you felt disconnected and alone, and that you couldn't speak your truth and, like, be supported and receive care. That's the trauma. And I was like,
Mm, yes.
all those years of disconnection for, you know, a huge variety of reasons. And it's really not about blaming
Yeah.
other people. It's more like, and this is what I love about Primal Trust too, it's like acknowledging the past
Hmm.
pain, but putting all of the focus on the responsibility and the privilege that you have right now
Hmm.
to be your own inner parent, to be really who you are
Hmm.
and who you've always been.
Hmm.
And it just like it is hard work, it's uncomfortable. There's a lot of uncomfortable emotions that come with it, but to have all the support
Hmm.
and all these other people going through this amazing journey too, it just makes it so much more doable and, easeful. It's not easy,
No.
but it also doesn't have to be re-traumatizing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it puts you in the position of taking ownership of life, because it's much easier to remain a victim to our traumas and to the circumstances and to the illnesses. It's much easier to
Mm.
be in that position. And when we can actually go to those dusty, hard places to not just forgive other people that may have been wounding in our story, but to forgive ourselves and to offer compassion for the parts of us that have been shut down, that have been closed off, that don't think they're worthy of love. I mean, every single human on this planet is a complex, diverse human. We have so many parts of ourselves that are beautiful and broken all at the same time. And so to be able to look at those very broken parts of ourselves and say, hey, I see you. You are welcome to be here as long as you need. I'm not going to ignore you anymore. I'm not going to shove you away anymore. You're safe here, is the point of almost no return in the transformational journey. Because it's that creation of safety within. I am safe here now in this. And every single part of me that doesn't feel safe, I just want you to know the war is over. I am listening. My cells can start shining brightly. We are safe.
Yeah. And the way that our cells are interwoven with that
Yeah.
perspective, whether we are connected or we're not, whether we're trusting ourselves or
Yeah.
we just don't trust, it is mind-blowing. The science is showing this more, more, and more and more. Our physical atoms, are directly reflecting these energetic
Yeah.
components that start with, thoughts or old beliefs that came from a lot of thoughts.
Every day I'm visualizing my cells happy and radiant, full of light. I've always been a positive person, um, but I didn't really realize how much that viewing of life with the glass half full would really serve this journey towards transformation.
That's such a great point. Yeah. And if you can use that as like, you can have that as your baseline where it's like, that is I'm willing to turn toward acceptance and gratitude and, then once you have that does create more trust in your system and it gives you the bandwidth to then hold the parts that are really ugly and really hard. Yeah, that's oh, I know I was gonna say, that was one of my favorite C practices in the ABC was I would create these, like, scenarios of my cells, um, not only what they looked like, but it kind of evolved into these funny little skits of, like I'd be like, "Okay, we are having an all-team meeting with all the cells in my body."
Yes.
And I would, like, be at a podium and be, like, calling out, like, shouting out to different organs or groups of cells and be like, "You guys are doing such a great job." And they'd be like high-fiving each other. And then we'd have a big dance party at the end.
Yes, it works. That is how Dr. Joe Dispenza healed his body after that traumatic bike accident. He visualized all of the connections happening, all of the neurons firing. He visualized his cells healing himself. And you know what is incredible about this whole thing about healing is it ends up being not about us seeking the healing we so desire, and it ends up being this entire transformation of self. And then one day we wake up and we go, huh, I haven't thought about that symptom or condition in days or weeks or months because I'm not fixated on it anymore. Because I've realized through this alchemy of pain, I found a new purpose in life. I mean, there's a brilliant study that talks about having a purpose in life is predicting mortality rates. And I'll attach that study in the description. And I learned that from Primal Trust is so much of this work becomes purpose centric and we then become uninterested in our bucket list or not bucket list but our list of old conditions because we're no longer aligning with those anymore because we know the power of our words and we know the power of proclaiming I have mold toxicity or I have insert whatever. We know and have learned the power of what we are speaking over ourselves. And Primal Trust does an amazing job of giving people tools of how to create some new neural pathways. If somebody is listening and going, "Oh my gosh, like I want to get off this bandwagon, how do I create a new reality?"
Yeah, it's an exciting journey, and there is that part of, like you spoke to, letting go of the identity of I'm sick or I have this or that, but it could be there's other identities that probably came before that, that were like our not self identities. And so for a lot of people, it's been a long time since they've really asked or listened or known or remembered who they really are. And there's so much of that in Primal Trust as well, where permission to do that, like, permission just I mean, you go through life for decades, and there's so much pressure to be someone else or to meet certain external expectations, and that creates a chronic disconnect from what is really me. Who am I? What am I? So, yeah, it's just delightful discovery.
So, as you know, I'm in the world of environmental health. And so I work with a lot of clients who would consider themselves chemical sensitive, or they are working through mold exposures, or electromagnetic radiation sensitivities, or also known as EMF. And so a lot of my clients I am working with to help build and design healthy homes, healthy structures that are safe and meet the highest of health standards, right? For my sensitive clients. And I have often encouraged strongly that if I'm going to work alongside of you, I really want to encourage you to pursue a brain retraining, limbic system retraining, nervous system regulation program, because I could design the healthiest home on the planet. But if one of my clients still believes that they are not safe from mold, they're not going to thrive in this new safe home. So, could you please comment on that? Just your wisdom, because you have experience, and I know we're wrapping up here in a few minutes, but you have experience with mold exposures and mold illness. And I would love for you to give some encouragement to clients who may be in that position where they're so fearful, they are completely dysregulated, they're trying to seek safety. They need some calm, right?
Yeah. Ugh. Well, first, as you brought up this topic, I realized in the beginning when you asked me kind of my list of symptoms and experiences, I didn't even mention mold, which is
Because it
hilarious.
was such a significant part of your story.
It was massive. I was, like, living in mold world for, like, 10 years. Well, I was living in moldy houses for, 10, 12, 13 years before I even knew it was an issue.
Interesting, by the way.
Yes. So it wasn't it in the beginning, it was not me, my mind creating this problem and, focusing on it. That wasn't the issue. It was really an overload of trauma, like all the stress and trauma from all the parts of my life, including, toxic mold. And that does contribute to the bucket of stress for your nervous system. But it got stuck in the loop of all the other traumas. So once I realized, "Oh, this is really a thing," and then I kind of went down the mold protection path, shall we say, and I mean, I cannot tell you I can't even count all the places that I've lived and moved out of because of mold, whether it was real or imagined, or it was usually real, but it was sometimes it wasn't as bad as I was imagining that it was. My kids were exposed, so there was, like, that whole other layer of parenting and fear around them, and they had symptoms, and it was heartbreaking. And I was trying to be a mom, so all my symptoms that made it very difficult to be the kind of mom I wanted to be, for a while, all of that was lumped on mold. And okay, a couple things I wanna say about the mold specifically. I did a lot of testing and binders and detox attempts, a lot, and none of it ever really worked. And I was so tired, this is like year 17, 18. I got so tired of supplements. and all of those things, I finally just surrendered that heart and said, "Okay, I'm just gonna focus on my nervous system and just see what happens." And that's when I started getting better. And what happens is the detox and the nutrient pathway, they only open up and function when your system as a whole is like in safety mode. I call it maintenance mode. But all of those years that I spent in survival mode because my stress bucket had been overwhelmed and then my limbic system had been stuck, it was just not letting my body detox. It's so simple. So after I let that stuff go and focused on nervous system regulation and deep, healing the trauma, I never did another binder again. I stopped testing. I was like, "You know what? I feel fine." And my body, I noticed, started utilizing detoxification pathways. I started sweating. I started being regular, in the bathroom, and it was only because my system had just switched gears. It was like, "Oh, yeah, now that we feel trust and safety and ease, and we know how to do all this, we know how to detox." And it was really cool to watch. Even before I was significantly better, my reactions to mold were getting less and less. And I was acutely aware of my reactions. If I would go spend 2 minutes in a moldy place, and I had family members who still lived in moldy houses that I had tested, and they were very contaminated. But I could tell month after month, year after year, my reactions got much less, and now I can go into a place that I know has mold, and I could stay for now I could spend the night there, I have. And I might have a few little, like, freak out moments the next day, but I'm like, "No, we're good, I've got
Mhm.
this." Mm. Yeah, but I do think so my perspective, okay, 2 little perspectives, maybe big, that have kinda shifted. Number 1, um, I do believe that we do deserve to live in sustainable, like, well-built,
Yeah.
structures, and that's a passion of mine, which makes me so happy that, that you're doing what you're doing. Um, and I choose that for myself. I'm choosing to make that a priority, to not live in a, very moldy environment. I know there's some in my apartment now where I live. Um, but the other thing is that I started to see, just reflecting on, like, mold and now all of the information about
Mm.
mushrooms and other, fungal organisms, I and how, theories about how the human brain actually evolved, like, co-evolved with, um, fungal beings, and how we may have used them to, like, expand our
Yeah.
consciousness. And that's potentially, why we have all these different levels of awareness. But I started to see, like, what if these fungal beings were actually helping me? What if they were like, they noted there was like a receptor in my
Yeah.
brain that was like, "Oh, I need help, need help, need help." And the mold was like, "I got you. I'm gonna make you really, really sick so that you can't keep living like you've been living."
Yes. 1,000%.
I mean, if you had presented that idea to me 10 years ago, I don't know that I could have heard it, but
Yeah.
it's back to what you said about the symptoms too, are like, they are
Uh-huh.
messages. They are calling out to us. Our system is sometimes screaming out, begging, yearning for a kind of care that is very fundamental. And if the nervous system gets overloaded and crashes and it has to reboot
Mhm.
from the bottom up, you really it requires this a lot of attention and care in the beginning. And then it can it's like we're giving it these developmental
Mhm.
milestones,
Yeah.
and then it can get strong and dynamic and do all the things we wanna do, but you can't skip over getting really, really in there and being so present with
Yeah.
yourself.
Wow. If this doesn't encourage somebody that is in the thick of it, I don't know. I mean, you said it so beautifully, Candace. Things happen in our lives for a reason. And I believe there is an intelligence out there that knows we might need 12 years of mold exposure experiences to wake up and come into something totally new. I mean, you have completely alchemized your life because of the trauma, because of the illness, because of the experience. But your higher self already knew that, right? Your higher self essentially laid it all out for you to experience, to then say, I know Candace so well that she's going to alchemize this and this and this and this and this. And she, in 12 years' time, is going to be able to handle mold exposure without an issue because she's so damn regulated. Oh my gosh. I mean, you really are, you glow. I don't know if you know this, but you glow. So your your cells are just like, woohoo, I'm beaming light.
Yeah, and it's just such a pleasure. Like, I was such a drain. I was so not glowing for so many years. I just felt like wherever I went, I was just like the soggy, moldy wet blanket. But it also really helped me appreciate, like someone said to me the other day, like, "I can just hear your joy through your voice, and you're not even saying anything," like and I was thinking, like, is first of all, I'm just, like, so grateful to be
Yeah.
alive. Like, all the stuff that we go through that's so deep and hard and, like, God, just
Mhm.
so hard. It's part of life. It's the part that helps us savor, like, the sunlight and the green
Mhm.
grass and just the, you know, one moment of connection with ourselves or someone else. So, yeah, I am so grateful for my journey, even I wouldn't probably wish it on anyone, but I wish it on me and I receive it, and who knows, like, who knows what's possible.
That's where the C comes in with ABC. Well, thank you, Candace, for being a Primal Trust shaman today, a Primal Trust tour guide, giving us and the listeners a glimpse into this amazing program that has blessed me beyond belief. And I believe will bless my future generations because I'm choosing this. I'm choosing to heal and transform what maybe past generations weren't able to do with the consciousness at the time. And so I very much enjoy the content that you have on Primal Trust. I think just spending 30 minutes or an hour with you is instantly transports me to Zen time. I feel so Zen chatting with you.
Yeah.
So I'm just really grateful for you. And this has been full of amazing information. And we all deserve to live a life that is thriving, truly. So thank you for modeling hope for so many people.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure, and thank you for spreading this word and these seeds far and wide, We need people who aren't just in the container of the healing, like, this is for
Mhm.
everyone. and whether it's through Primal Trust or, some direct connection that you have with your own source. Like, yeah, it's just such a pleasure to talk about it and to witness your journey too. And then, be invited. Thank you so much.